Hey guys, welcome back to Cardio Chats, the little show that I got going on where I just free talk while I'm doing my cardio. This is episode 2, and I'm not really sure what I'm going to talk about today, but this is just kind of like practice, I suppose. I mean, it's kind of like a solo podcast episode of sorts, like a free-flowing stream of consciousness. So we'll just kind of figure it out as we go along. I may as well just stick to lifting because I'm in a gym and I just did a session. Today I just did my arm session. The video should have already been out if you're watching this one. This should have been the most recent video, all about like common arm training mistakes. And I did a couple supersets there, which are new to me, but I think are pretty genius. Like for instance, I did the Smith machine JM press, where you're lying flat on a bench and you're doing elbow extension in like a horizontal way next to your neck. And I did that until failure. Then I superset it. I just like went back a little bit on the bench, and then I did a close grip bench press. And man, my chest is freaking fried from the other day. However, I think that it's still a killer superset, and it really worked out for me in the sense of he really put my triceps through the ringer, and I think I'm going to feel this one tomorrow. And then additionally, I did the seated dumbbell unilateral preacher curl superset with like a couple reps of the hammer curl variation. That's another new one for me. And I love lifting so much in so many different ways, but I think that my favorite part of it is when you try out new things like that, for instance, like those 2 variations, or you just have like a light bulb moment where you're like, oh, these combinations of exercises are going to make sense, or you figure out how to do an exercise in a different way. For example, I saw on social media, I forgot which media platform, it was probably like TikTok or something, where this guy was saying how, it wasn't talking, he just showed it, and then there's like a caption like people like to do. I prefer to talk in my videos, I'm sure you guys picked up on that, but it was like an inclined bench with like the upper portion of the bench where your head would go right against a cable machine. And then he had like a straight bar, or no, I think it was like a long rope attached to it. And then he was just doing straight arm lat pull downs while he was stabilized against the inclined bench like this. And I think that is freaking brilliant, because I usually just do my straight arm lat pull downs standing facing the cable machine, usually with a bar because it's more stable. And then I'm really hinged at the hips. I have a huge hip hinge going on so that I get a deeper stretch in my lats, since the line of pull is going to be way above me, which is, don't get me wrong, it's a great variation, but this new form just adds in a ton of stability. It adds in a huge stability component. And if you guys have been watching my channel for a while, you know that I'm like Mr. Stability. I really love to talk about how your muscles want a ton of tension and they want a lot of stability, and then obviously intensity. And if you have all those factors and you can really just put a muscle through the ringer, you're going to see some growth associated with that muscle. So I think this new variation, I think I'm going to try it tomorrow. If the gym isn't too busy, I'm going to be going to a busier gym tomorrow just because I haven't been there in a while. And I like to mess around with rotating gyms just because, you know, it's more fun to kind of experiment and use different machines. And additionally, I think that it's better for you guys as viewers, because then it's not just the same exact scenery all the time. When I first started recording in a gym, I was just doing like my local gym, the one closest to my house. And while that's totally great, what I found was I eventually like ran out of things to talk about, because I would just be doing the same routine with the same equipment day in, day out, 6 days a week for months. And eventually I'd be like, geez, I don't even know what to say about this anymore. There's really not much for me to say about this specific exercise. And that was just really self-defeating, and it kind of zapped my passion for lifting And whenever your passion gets zapped, you know that you got to mix something up. So by adding in all these gyms, and I'm just doing LA Fitness and 24 Hour Fitness if you're curious, just because there's so many in the area that I live in. So I can just rotate through them. There's like 6 different locations I can make, 4 or 5, 6, somewhere in that range, where I can just rotate through and change it up day in, day out. And it's so much more fun that way. But anyway, I'll be going to one which is one of the busier ones in town. So if I can do that for my back day, then I will. If I can't, then I'll figure something else out. I've only been in that gym one time ever. So it's going to be kind of a new experience in terms of I'm just going to have to kind of make it up on the fly. But that's also another fun part, is getting really creative and making things up as you go along. Additionally, there's another back thing that I want to talk to you guys about. And that's that I actually received a comment on TikTok. If you're not following me on TikTok, even if you want to support me, a subscription is a great way to say thank you. But TikTok is just, my Instagram and my TikTok that I have in my description they're just clips. So if you're watching the full videos, then it's kind of redundant to go on there, but it's just a way for me to try and spread to a wider audience. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. I received a comment on TikTok where basically my video was all about how by doing supination, by supinating your wrist while you are doing any form of a vertical pulse, like a pull-up, then that is going to be using your biceps more in the back movement. And then by pronating, you're using the biceps less, and therefore the emphasis is shifting more to your back, which I think that's important to remind yourself depending on what you're trying to get out of the lift. For instance, chin-ups, obviously it's a great bicep exercise, but it's also a great back exercise. But pull-ups, we more attribute that just to back growth and less so bicep growth. So the comment was basically that he said that pronated first until your back is so fatigued that you can't do anymore is great, but then you can swap to supinated and then complete more repetitions because your biceps are still relatively fresh. So it can be a way to push yourself even further and get more of a back stimulus. And I just thought that was so brilliant. It just made so much sense. I mean, if anything, he was just applying the information that I provided, but he obviously already knew it. But it's just like anybody can learn all these things, but it really takes somebody that's really into it to not only use the knowledge, but get creative with the knowledge. And that's what separates, like, people who can get something done to people who are true experts in their fields. Like, I got really big into photography during COVID. It was like 2020, like the very beginning of COVID. And I would look up all these Photoshop tutorials, and basically all I was doing was copying exactly what they did to my images, just following along on YouTube step by step. And that's a great way to get some really great results. I mean, I thought my photos were awesome. I was showing them to everybody and their mothers, and I was just super excited about it. But, just learning this step-by-step rudimentary way to make something great doesn't give you a lot of freedom when you want to use the tools that were shown off in the video in different ways. In order to get creative with it and really develop your own style and stuff, you actually need to learn what the tools do. Eventually, 4 years later, now I understand Photoshop a lot more, but it wasn't through like watching tutorials, which it probably should have been. It was just through, making YouTube thumbnails and continuing to just kind of tinker and play around. So I think that can be a great way to learn. And that's kind of how I want to ultimately approach my lifting. Like, there's optimal ways to do things, but there's ways to get creative with it without being needlessly flashy. A lot of people that you see on like Instagram and TikTok and stuff, they're doing these like outrageous lifts that just look like they're totally for show. And I honestly hate that with a passion, because it's encouraging the younger generation, or just people who are more naive or don't have enough knowledge in the field, to try these really elaborate training methods, which aren't any better than the tried and true methods. And a lot of the times they can just be totally flat on their face worse. And most of the time, I think that they would really lend themselves to injury. For instance, you'll see people like squatting with whole ass like people on either side of the bar, or they'll do some crazy shit where they're like on like a Bosu ball and they got chains, or they're like holding. I don't know. These are just examples, and these are really extreme examples, but you get the gist. I'm sure that people can really take this idea out of proportion and turn it into something ugly. While it may look cool on paper, it's not cool in practice, and it's needlessly out there. And you're actually not going to see any more progress than following the tried and true method. So basically how I want to approach it is, let's get creative with the lifting, but let's keep the creativity within the confines of what works. It's easy to go out of the confines of what works and say, oh, I developed this cool exercise, I'm going to name it after myself, and I want everyone to do it. Well, nobody's going to do it if it's not actually good. So, like, here's an example. I saw a video, this was years ago, by Eugene Tell. I'm sure that you guys know him if you're big in the fitness social sphere, especially on YouTube. He was showing a variation of a lat pull down. This guy is a great science-based lifter, let me firstly say that, but I thought it was so genius because this is kind of like a similar variation of the exercise that I talked about a little bit, like 5 minutes ago or whatever, where you're having an inclined bench set up at a lat pull down or a cable variation, whatever you choose, and then you have your chest against it prone, and then you can attach some like of your own handles or just a gym handles onto like a lat pull down straight bar, and that'll give you a little bit more free flowing motion for your specific anatomy and whatever structure you have. And then by having that base of support, you're ultra stable, and you can just work your lats in this line of pull. And the argument against this may be, oh, you can just do the same thing with like a fancy dancy machine variation. Totally. You totally could, but where this exercise really stands out is that you have like those handles on there and a great base of support that's actually modifiable depending on where you put the bench relative to the cable and how high the incline is. So I did that for a while, but eventually decided that setting it up every day was a little bit of a drag, because the more complex you make an exercise, the longer the setup's going to be. And I think that a lot of people, they don't think about how much setup something is actually requiring and how much effort that is ultimately zapping your system of. Because, like, for instance, let's say you're setting up a conventional deadlift. Yeah, that's a great damn exercise, but if you're extremely strong, then you may be loading like 6 plates on each side. That takes a lot of energy to load up those plates. You better be doing more than like 2 or 3 sets of that deadlift. Otherwise, that's your workout right there. It's just setting up the plates. You know what I mean? Like, that's the whole ordeal. Hey, sorry about that. I had to adjust my camera a little bit. I was a little bit too much in people's ways, unfortunately, but we're back. So I kind of lost my train of thought there, but I believe that I was saying something along the lines of talking about how setting up exercises can be needlessly fatiguing, you know? So if you're really strong at a certain lift, you may want to stay at that lift for a while. If you have to set up a ton of plates, same deal with like a conventional deadlift as it is with like something like a leg press variation. With a leg press, most people are doing more than like 3 or 4 plates on each side. Now that doesn't sound like a shit ton, but when you have to load up, 8 plates in total, that can kind of, it can zap you a little bit. So I think that maybe just that's where careful programming comes into play. You got to set up all those plates, account for that, and maybe stay at that machine longer, maybe give yourself a little bit more rest, maybe don't have too many of those really heavy compound lifts in one session that'll zap you, or maybe make sure that the next day is a rest day. I don't know. It depends on your lifestyle and your factors and stuff like that. So that's a form of creativity when it comes to lifting, is just getting creative with the exercises, finding out more optimal exercises, different supersets. That's super fun. Taking things all the way to failure and beyond. Super fun. I mean, I always say failure and beyond. I don't know if that's super, that's not really super accurate, because the definition of failure is not being able to do any more. So by definition, you can't actually go beyond unless you're doing forced reps. So I should probably clarify failure and then doing forced reps. With a leg press, that would be like pushing your knees. With the preacher curl variation, that would be assisting my arm, etc., etc. There's definitely ways. I'd like to talk about something a little bit different now, and that's video editing. I don't know how much you guys are into that. I doubt you are very much into it, since you're really just on here for fitness content. But through doing this YouTube channel, I have really found a new passion and love for videography in particular. A ton of love. I mean, I'm getting obsessed with this damn thing. It is, it's a lot of fun. And I think it's kind of apparent that a lot of fitness, like influencers or fitness guys online, they're not super big into it unless they have like their own editor, which a lot of people do nowadays, where their editor will help. I think that, to name drop Jeff Nippard, obviously he's into videography because he stated that he does all of his own edits. And until like very recently, and it's apparent on the screen, like that guy's videos they're incredible, but he's been doing it for like 10 years. And then like Mike Israel with Renaissance Periodization, I don't think he's into it, but he has an editor, Scott the video guy. I keep up with the people online. And so unfortunately, like I can't really get a video editor, so I'm going more of the Jeff Nippard route of, hey, let's figure this out ourselves. But then maybe eventually, if I'm in a more financial suitable position, then maybe I can get my own video editor. But honestly, I'm kind of the opinion now that I'm starting to love videography so much and the editing so much that I'm almost tempted to not even include a videographer. And I would really support that decision if we didn't take up so much damn time. I don't know if you guys realize, but these videos are taking me at least 3 to 4 hours a day just for the editing process alone. That's not even including anything else like the uploading, exporting process, writing the caption. I don't write very many captions or descriptions because I already kind of did that. But my ultimate goal is to really get down a groove that produces high quality videos that people like, and be able to make a bunch of kind of templates that can streamline my process a lot easier. So I'm sure that you guys have noticed that the new format is way different. Like I have the upcoming section, then the game plan section. But then we get into the first set, and the sets are sped up with like things that say exactly what I'm doing, what set I'm at. And that's all great. And a couple of you commented that you like the new format, and I'm really glad. So I'm going to continue to try and push it in the direction that I like the best. But please let me know if you have any suggestions for making it better. Right now, I'm thinking about trying some new plugins for DaVinci Resolve. That's a video creation software that I use to try and make my color grading better. Because right now I think my color grading is good, but I think that it could become a much better ordeal if I really like focus on it and, you know, ultimately learn more about it. That'd be so sick if I can make it look like a film or something. And ultimately, my like end goal dream with all this is to have like my own camera crew and my own gym setup where I'm not always getting in people's way. I'm pretty good about being super cautious and asking people like, hey, can I, you know, are you cool with me filming here? Am I in your way? If I am, like, I'll move. I'm super conscious about it, and I always make sure that my camera, it like aren't recording people, at least not deliberately. And I'll even take it as far as like, if I want to do like a dumbbell RDL variation, but there's a bunch of people next to the dumbbells, I'll take those damn hundreds or 120 or whatever I'm doing, and I'll drag them across the whole entire freaking gym until I find a nice little corner of my own where I'm not in people's way. And I think that if you guys are trying to do the social media fitness thing like I am currently, and I probably will be forever unless it's really apparent that you guys don't like it, then you got to be conscious of other people, because ultimately you're in their way. They're not in your way, no matter what, because you're the one who's bringing a camera to the gym, which in most cases is frowned upon. I've gotten complaints before. This was before I got a suitable lens. This is before I had a suitable camera. And what do I mean by that? Well, I basically mean that, you know, different lenses, if you're familiar with photography or videography, there's the angle of the lens dictates how much you get into the frame. So right now, I'm planning to not have this lens forever because I don't really like this one, but right now I'm using 11 millimeter, which is extremely wide angle. And I don't know if you guys could notice, but I hate the way it makes me look. And I hate the way that it makes the world look. Honestly, I thought I would like it, but I hate it because it's so wide angle. I mean, you guys are only about 2 feet away from me right now, which is just nuts, you know? And it kind of makes everything look all warped and weird. But the benefit of a wide angle like this is that you can have the camera 2 feet away, and therefore you're not putting it in other people's spaces. When I first started like ever filming in a gym, I was using my old camera. This camera was unfortunately stolen out of my basement. I don't live in like, I mean, it's not a bad area of town, but it's kind of next to a bad area, and therefore there's just more risk involved, whatever, it doesn't matter. But as a side note, but my camera was stolen, but that camera had a 50 mil, and a 50 mil, I almost feel like you got to place it like all the way across the gym, which, long story short, that would just totally get in people's way. And, you know, people didn't like that, which was totally fair. So like that day, I only filmed with it one time, but that day I got like 5 complaints. So never again. I was like, I can't film with this camera. At least not this lens. See, and that's back when I was doing like the studio sessions where I was literally recording in my basement. I had like a squat rack set up, the old one for my parents when I was, you know, still in high school, and I was super gung-ho about lifting. Still am. That's how I know that's a true passion. But yeah, so now this one, of course, it's much more of a wide angle, so I can kind of set it up here, but I want my 35 mil back, which unfortunately broke the other week. So I've been kind of going through a dip here, but I think that what separates like the successful people from unsuccessful is that they never quit. You know, they're just going to keep on going. So I'm going to keep on trucking along. I may slow down on the videos if things get really tough. I may speed up if I feel like I'm really succeeding. We'll just see how it goes. But all of you guys that actually support me, you know, yeah, I have a couple of you guys that are, you'll throw in like a comment every month and just say like that you like the videos and stuff. And thank you from the bottom of my heart. That means so much to me. It's what keeps me going. If it weren't for you select few, I may have quit. I don't know. We'll see. But my kind of rationale behind all this is that I'm going to be lifting till the day I die. I love lifting. I love working out. It has so many benefits for your health and mental health. And it's just a true passion of mine. So, and videography is becoming a passion too. And those are just two things which work so well together. And therefore, since I'm already going to be in the gym, I may as well just bring my camera along. And even if I don't go crazy with it, I think that it's still like a no-brainer. Why not do it as long as it doesn't mess up other areas of my life, which, I'm kind of running into the situation where it certainly can, just because it takes up so much time. So maybe my form of like quitting in the future, if things aren't going too well, would just be to slow down with the videos. Maybe just slow down a little bit, but I honestly don't think I'll ever stop. Anyway, sorry about the random rant there about my own interpersonal demons with this whole YouTube social media thing. But anyway, I think that's going to do it for today's episode of Cardio Chats.